Hey guys, I'm finally back to a game I haven't talked about in literally 4 years. Wow. To say that this video is long overdue would be a severe understatement. I've even tried making it many times before, but stopped due to classic Marcor boredom. I'm much more committed to this YouTube thing these days, however, so let's finally talk about A Hat in Time once more. Something the comments mentioned on that old ass video that still kinda surprisingly holds up is the Death Wishes. This is a mode added to the Seal the Deal DLC pack that includes extra hard versions of already existing levels, rewarding you with extra costumes, badges, etc. I never really gave this mode much thought initially, I just thought it was kinda neat, but after seeing the odd comment here and there asking for a video on them, I decided, where's the harm in more Hat in Time content? So I played through them all a couple years back, and they broke me. These ended up being some of the toughest, most rage-inducing levels I've ever played in a 3D platformer. I have 5 separate recordings of my attempt at the last challenge you unlock, totaling just under 3 hours of gameplay. In all fairness, I've historically been pretty bad at controlling my tempo when going through tough challenges, so part of it was definitely a me thing and a skill issue, but hey. This was back when I first attempted to make this video, by the way. I've since replayed them all for this version, and greatly enjoyed my time a lot more. I feel like there are a few missed opportunities here and there in these challenges overall, but I think they are all great for what they are. As always, however, some have to be better than the others, so let's rank them. To clarify, I am only including the altered missions created by Gears for Breakfast, so the candle missions and community rifts are not included here. Without further ado, let's finally rank all of the Death Wishes in A Hat in Time. Real quick, likey, subscribe, all the other YouTube stuff as well, so I can have more than 0 views, let's go. 27. Collectathon. This mission isn't really terribly designed, it's just kinda boring. Collect a total of 100 ponds around Mafia Town whilst your counter slowly decreases. There's nothing unique to this mission that stands out in comparison to other Death Wishes or normal timepieces. You can get pretty much the same experience out of this by playing the main game's vault code timepiece. They could have at least done something about the presentation to make it more intense or something, or better yet, replace the entire concept with a new version of cheating the race, the most disappointing level of the original game. Imagine expanding that to 3 laps with more Mafia guys about the race, including a few extra secret shortcuts here and there. That would be awesome, but oh well. This mission's barely worth anybody's time and is the only D-tier Death Wish I came across. 26. Speedrun Well. These speedrun missions are essentially the same as the similar prankster comets in Mario Galaxy, except more annoying as they take the place of potentially more interesting challenges. We only have so many of these to go around, so slapping a timer on a random mission does not invoke any interest in me. This one is the weakest mainly because it is the weakest of all the timepieces that got a speedrun variant. I can do this on my own, I don't need Snatcher to force a timer on myself. 25. She speedran from outer space. This speedrun mission is arguably more infuriating as we already have 2 much more interesting Death Wishes about this specific level. Again, cheating the race was right there, guys. Why couldn't you do something about that one? Also, I hate how the cutscenes still add on to the timer. It's always a massive pet peeve of mine whenever timers continue at points where you physically cannot move. It's worse in Speedrun Well, but not much better here. 24. The Great Big Hootenanny. This is one of those Death Wishes that just makes too much sense not to include. Increasing the marching band that follows you to about like 50 members is just so logical, even if it doesn't change too much with the mission itself in the grand scheme of things. This place is ginormous, so it's unlikely you'll run into somebody from ages ago unless a DJ Groove token spawns somewhere you just left. Stalling is pretty easy, and the lower gravity allows you to better process everything, so yeah. It's a mission I definitely wouldn't change at all, but you won't catch me replaying it for fun ever again. 23. Bird Sanctuary. This mission is exactly what I would have loved to see out of these more often, even if I'm not a fan of the execution of this one specifically. Altering an already existing mission with a sudden change that completely changes the way you approach it is genius. I just think that this can get infuriating thanks to the stupid, dumb, annoying, pushy bird thingies. Crazy concept, but getting launched across the stratosphere thanks to a dumb bird and falling onto an innocent crow only to die because you take damage if you kill them here is annoying. At least this mission does feel unique to the Death Wish mode as a whole, as opposed to the lower ones which are mostly kinda worthless additions. Nice idea, annoying execution. 22. Cruisin' for a Bruisin'. The placement of this one really boils down to personal preference, more than most others in my eyes. Do you enjoy getting a panic attack as you slowly help more and more and more people on this silly cruise ship? If you do, more power to ya, but yeah, I just find this one far too stressful for its own good. Maybe it's because I'm still rusty having not played this game for a few years, but I don't know. This one might go higher if I committed to learning every possible task required and the optimal route for them all. It's another one that just makes sense to be in the game, even if it is a bit generic of a change. 21. Beat the Heat. This is the first Death Wish you will play, and is a pretty solid introduction to the whole concept. You will now burn after existing in this level for too long, so you have to find various water sources to cool off before you do. It's a simple yet effective way of raising the stakes in this decently solid mission, even if it doesn't inspire too much within me. Yeah, there's not really much else to say, it's just a decent little challenge that prepares you well for the craziness to come. 20. Boss Rush. I don't think I've ever really been a fan of boss rushes in games, and that applies to this one too. At least the bosses of this game are already some of my favourites in 3D platforming, so that's why it's reached this high. The stakes of only having 3 lives to complete it adds a lot to the challenge, but there's also one giant pet peeve I have with the way you respawn after a death. For some inexplicable reason, instead of entering with full health because you died, you enter with the amount of health you first entered the fight with. So, if you enter the chapter 2 boss with 2 health and die, you don't respawn with 4 health, only 2. It's so stupid and makes no sense, but I did manage to complete this after a half hour, so it wasn't that bad. Just do what you did in the main levels and you're golden. We are so not ready for the future boss refights though. Oh boy. 19. So you're back from outer space. This mission is really getting there with what I wanted to see more of. Not only did they add tougher enemies to the main platforming bits of the OG level, they extended it to add an entire new section of tougher platforming and more fun. Again, it doesn't truly expand the horizons of what the game does overall outside of the final segment with the homing missiles, but I would consider this Death Wish to be the first truly good one, a 7 out of 10 if you will. There are others that execute this idea far better, but we'll get there when we get there. 18. Vault Codes in the Wind. I'm honestly surprised at how much I enjoyed this one upon replay. It slaps a 30-second timer that resets upon collecting a code onto the vault mission from chapter 1, but it's shockingly effective at raising the stakes. It really encourages you to find an optimal route to collect them all, especially thanks to the bonus missions. This is like the only other time where the time stop hat is remotely useful, and the bonus mission encourages you to specifically avoid using it. That just upsets me, honestly. There's so much potential for that thing that got obliterated by its use in-game. Oh well, this is overall a better executed Beat the Heat in some ways, and I can see myself coming back to it for a more optimized time. 17. Rift Collapse, Sleepy Subcon. You may be surprised to see the Rift Collapses so high in comparison to the other speedrun missions, and this is for a few reasons. 1. These feel much more suited for speedrun missions than most other speedrun missions they created. And 2. The presentation is a lot stronger. The music is intense and chaotic, the visuals are more warped and crazy, and it just feels a lot more intense than something like Speedrun Well. There's also the joy of finding the optimal route by choosing the fastest relic ponds to find, which adds a ton to the gameplay of these. But there does have to be a weakest one, and Sleepy Subcon takes the cake for me. This is mainly because it has the least interesting platforming of them all, with the least amount of sections too. It feels like it ends before it really gets going, which I never realized in the main mission because of the lower stakes and the awesome story you get by the end. There's a few more of these obviously, so let's continue this conversation when we get to them. 16. The Illness Has Speedrun. This is probably another surprising one to have so high, as it really is just another speedrun mission at the end of the day, but here's the thing. The Illness Has Spread is a really good level. The others were just barely tolerable to adapt into speedruns, but this one was an inspired choice thanks to its length and ambition. It's also pretty easy to cut it close here, which feels way more impactful than the other missions thanks to said length. It's not going to go much higher on this list thanks to its unoriginality, but I appreciate how fun it is to play this level with the clock in mind. 15. The Mustache Gauntlet. This one honestly goes kinda hard. Complete the final level of the game whilst defeating every enemy you come across. Obviously, a lot of the joy of this level comes from the platforming that was in the original. I truly forgot how fun it was. But I do enjoy a lot of the enemy layouts they've created for this mission, like this one with the owls and mafia guys in the final segment. My hatred for the invisible cat stays strong though. How did they think this enemy was a good idea? I guess my biggest complaint is how infuriating it can be to die and have to redo a whole bunch of enemies again. Maybe that's a personal preference thing, but I don't know. It's still fun enough to reach this high. 14. Mafia's Jumps. Can you beat She Came From Outer Space without jumping? Well, not really, but I've gotten close. After watching so many challenge videos of stuff like this about this game, it's nice to be encouraged by the game itself to try it out. It feels really satisfying to cross large gaps without that counter going up, and sorta makes me want to try a challenge run of the game myself. I've had this idea of beating the game with minimal hat uses or badge uses. Let me know if you'd want to see that happen. But yeah, the challenge doesn't really have a lot to say about itself. It's just a really simple yet effective way of raising the stakes in an iconic mission. Maybe one more of these for a different chapter could have been nice. 13. Rift Collapse. Deadbird Studio. This time Rift was always more memorable gameplay-wise to me. I think it utilizes the various mechanics from the chapter in more interesting ways than Sleepy Subcon did. Plus, the extra layers of intensity brought out by the music and effects works wonders to add a new flavor to the level, just like the last one. It isn't really my ideal pick for speedrunning personally, but it's still one I'll always enjoy returning to. 12. Seal the Deal. This is the one. Seal the Deal is the final mission you unlock, and combines all of the boss refights created for this mode into a giant gauntlet that requires full mastery of everything the game has taught you up to this point. This is the one I spent 3 collective hours on over the course of multiple days way back when I recorded footage, so yeah, it very much broke me. We still haven't gotten to any of these boss refights yet, so I'll wait to talk about them when we get there, so I'll say this. There is not a better challenge to end the death wishes of than this, even if I'd just rather play the bosses separately. The major pet peeve I mentioned in Boss Rush is still present and honestly worse here due to the significantly harder difficulty, but because I generally prefer these tougher fights gameplay-wise, I think 12th place is a good enough spot for it. I respect the hell out of this challenge, but would never wish it upon my worst enemies. 11. Rift Collapse. Mafia of Cooks. This time Rift flows a lot better than the lower ones, mainly because it is less vertical. It's a lot easier to naturally travel from one relic pond to another, and it's the only one of these which I currently have all bonus missions for. I don't know, maybe because it's easier, it is more accessible and got my blood pumping when I return to these, but still. I think the flow of this one makes it stronger overall than the previous ones. 10. Rift Collapse. Alpine Skyline. While I don't think I had as much fun with this one as with Mafia of Cooks, I can definitely see the potential with this one being a blast to optimize the route of. The individual segments are really well designed and can definitely produce an insanely satisfying flow when done well. I just haven't done that yet, and may never honestly, but oh well. This is potential Rift, and I appreciate it so much for that. 9. Quality Time with Snatcher. I am so interested to see what the general consensus on this one is, as I think it is so fun. All you have to do is last long enough against Snatcher to gather all the stamps you can get, but it's just so enjoyable to do so, especially with him getting faster and faster as you go. It feels like it becomes second nature after lasting a while, bringing such a unique kind of challenge to the table compared to others. This is the only one that really encourages you to return to it after finishing everything, as you can go for a high score to see how long you can last. I've gotten around 9 minutes. Tell me what you've done. I can totally see myself coming back to this one, even if there are missions I find stronger overall. 8. Rift Collapse Deep Sea. Now this is a speedrun I'm talking about. This was one of the toughest missions in the OG game, so making the player master it makes too much sense not to do. The platforming here is some of the best and tightest around. Your heart races in the final section, and the individual bits of platforming are so unbelievably fun to execute. Like all the other speedrun missions, this one is heavily uplifted by both the original level's greatness and the Death Wishes presentation, but man, this is such a satisfying one to complete, to where the more basic additions don't really bog it down. I would class this as the best speedrun mission, but there is another one that adds its own unique ideas which make it stronger. 7. Killing 2 birds. This is the boss refight against either the conductor or DJ Grooves, but in this case, it's the both of them. This is another that just makes too much sense to do, and it is as amazing as it looks. Both enemies manage to space their attacks out perfectly so it's not unreadable. It's insanely impressive how understandable everything is. It's a very solid level of difficulty overall, and it's obviously insanely fun to hear both directors' insane ramblings throughout. I'd consider this one as the weakest of all the refights, mainly because it can get a little out of sync, which can easily throw you off and feel a little bullshit. Oh well, it's still an insanely fun challenge to complete, even if there are more compelling challenges later down the line. 6. Security Breach. This is the kind of stuff I'd love to see more of. Making this already amazing platforming challenge 10 times harder by placing a whole host of extra ways to get caught is just perfect, and feels so satisfying to complete. The original was already a personal favourite of mine for feeling so good sneaking around this movie studio, and this alternate version only ups the stakes more and more. There really isn't a whole lot to say, unfortunately. It just performs what it set out to do amazingly, and I am so sad we never really got much else like it in this mode. 5. 10 seconds until self-destruct. This is another simple yet insanely effective speedrunning mission. You start Train Rush with 10 seconds on the clock, and have to keep collecting the timers to survive. This, on paper, is very similar to the OG, but reducing the time down so much initially makes the stakes even more intense than they'd feel on a first playthrough, leading to one of the most insane experiences to have in this optional mode. The platforming may be the exact same, sure, but if every speedrun level went about the timer in this way, I can see myself respecting the lower ones a whole lot more. 4. Encore. Encore. Yeah, I'm surprised too. The refight against the Mafia boss managed to make it to the top 5, surpassing some amazing platforming challenges and other refights. It's just got such an insanely consistent flow to itself, with no moment feeling too unfair or out of nowhere. There are so many simple changes, like having the sandbags fall throughout instead of only on one attack, but the small things really add up to something shockingly brilliant. It is the easiest out of all the boss refights naturally, I even beat it on my first try on my older playthrough, so it doesn't really have as much of an addictive, satisfying nature as the other ones, so yeah. Still an exceptional challenge, but not exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to extremely difficult bosses. 3. Wound Up Windmill. This challenge was initially my number 1 way back when, and replaying it immediately made me understand why. Complete the windmill area whilst everything is at an extreme speed. It is another deceptively simple premise that just so happened to give us one of the most entertaining challenges I've seen out of a platformer. A lot of heavy lifting comes from the original Fantastic stage, sure, but there's an entirely unique flow to this variation that makes it feel like its own thing. There's even a bit of momentum at play thanks to the extra speed. I found this cool shortcut towards the beginning that skips a huge chunk of the early stuff, which was super useful. My first playthrough was full of so many hard attacks, and my subsequent ones are so satisfying. This is easily one of, if not the best platforming the entire game has to offer, and is a must-play for any fan of this game who hasn't checked out this mode yet. But, of course, there are 2 more missions that I think are slightly better designed. 2. Breaching the Contract. Before I even thought about trying Seal the Deal, I already found this as one of the toughest challenges in platforming. Each attack doesn't really feel too different when looking at the boss, but actually trying to take Snatcher down requires 110% of your attention, with perfect precision and barely any room for error. The aftershocks after each Pillar of Darkness attack become some of the hardest stuff to avoid in a 3D boss fight, and I mean no exaggeration, look at this stuff. Sometimes these can even last into the beginnings of other attacks too. It is insane. Insane, but really well designed. Somehow, there is nothing I would consider too ridiculous in this challenge, outside of some extremely specific patterns of attacks that you will barely see. It is all complete skill and reaction time, whilst being the exact right level of difficulty for me. It took me around an hour and 15 minutes to beat the first time, which I think is practically perfect for an intentionally difficult boss like this one. Requiring everything you've learnt across the entire game, this test of your mastery still manages to be one of the most fun bosses I've ever fought in a video game. As you can tell, however, there is one more I think somehow clears it. 1. No more bad guys. Mustache Girl's Refight is one of the best video game bosses I've ever fought. It manages a perfect balance of complete chaos and understandability, with zero room for error and complete concentration required. You are designed to take an hour to beat this thing, and it may even seem a bit too ridiculous at first, but like any Dark Souls boss will tell you, practice makes perfect. Every attack has a way to understand it and come to a consistent flow every time that manages to be tough as nails to execute. From jumping over the big laser attack, to jumping in tandem with the slams, to jumping around at an angle to avoid the timepiece shockwaves, god, it is so ridiculously fun! Unlike the other challenges, I knew this thing would take a long time to complete, and I think that expectation sort of calmed my nerves throughout my hour of attempts. I didn't know anything about the fight, but I just knew it would be tough, and that thought in my mind got me to keep trying, no matter what. They also managed to keep each of the OG separate phases without going overboard. The giant Mafia Ball is never in too annoying places, and Mustache Girl gives you enough time after her attacks to throw one of the exploding fruits at her. But the final phase, oh man, the final phase. This is where any remaining logic is thrown out of the window, and your objective becomes to survive. Yes, it may go a little overboard at this point, but I think it works because you can still find ways to dodge the attacks well, and you have slow healing thanks to everyone killing themselves. More than any other challenge in this game, completing this one made me feel like a god. I have practically no notes for this thing. I could not have asked for a better conclusion to this mode than this. I know it's not, but like, come on man. And that finishes the list. I'm so happy I finally returned to this gem of a game, and I've shown no signs of wanting to stop talking about it. I've had a few other ideas for video topics over the last 4 years, so if this does well, I may come back once more if there's demand. I don't really want to remake my old timepiece ranking again because I'm pretty satisfied with that video even to this day, but who knows, there's some potential in a modern version. I'm still begging for more content out of this game, or perchance a sequel. Please, Gears for Breakfast, do anything with this game. Well, we'll see if anything comes around, I guess. Up next for this channel is the long-awaited remaster of my even older Deltarune Chapter 1 video. See you then, goodbye.